You know that feeling when you get your energy bill and it's higher than you expected? Again, we always blame ourselves, right? Leaving the lights on, the thermostat cranked up. But what if the real culprit, the biggest energy hog in your life, isn't you? What if it's the building you're in right now? Today, we're pulling back the curtain on that secret energy bill. Just think about this for a second. When you go to the grocery store, you can flip over a box of cereal and get a nutrition label, right? You see the calories, the sugar, the good stuff, the bad stuff. It's all right there. Now, what if your house or your office came with a label just like that? A simple, easy-to-read sticker that tells you, hey, this place is super healthy and efficient, or watch out, this one's a total energy guzzler that's going to cost you. Okay, so let's dive right into this idea of a building's secret bill. Because the energy our buildings use, it's so much more than just a number on your utility statement. For a lot of us, it's one of the biggest, kind of invisible costs we have. And on a larger scale, it's a huge, huge piece of our total energy puzzle. You know, we get that bill every month, and we might grumble about it. But that bill is really just a symptom. The root cause, how well your walls are insulated, how leaky your windows are, how old your heating system is, all of that is totally hidden. It's kind of like having a tiny invisible hole in your car's gas tank. You just keep filling it up, paying more and more at the pump, but you have no idea you're leaking fuel the whole time. So the big question is, how do we find that leak? How do we make this invisible problem visible? Well, you need a system. You need a standard way of doing things. You need an official, let's call it a rule book, that's designed specifically to measure a building's energy health, compare it to others, and figure out how to improve it. And that's where this document comes in, MC001 2022. Now, I know that sounds super technical and maybe a little boring, right? But don't let the name fool you. Think of it less like a dry legal document and more like a coach's playbook. It gives everybody, auditors, builders, you, me, the same set of plays, the same detailed method for actually measuring and understanding how a building is performing, and most importantly, how to make it better. And the goals of this playbook are pretty huge, but also really practical when you break them down. First, it's about getting everyone on the same page, standardizing how we even calculate energy use. Then, it sets a really high bar for new construction, these nearly zero energy buildings. But it also provides a roadmap for fixing up the buildings we already have. And here's the kicker. It actually requires new buildings to get a good chunk of their power, at least 30%, from renewable sources. But maybe the most important part, it's all about transparency. Making this stuff visible so that when you go to buy or rent a place, you know exactly what you're getting into, energy-wise. Okay, so theory is great, but how does this playbook actually work in the real world? Let's walk through it. We're going to look at the anatomy of a real energy audit using a case study from the source material. And our patient for today, a school built all the way back in 1978. So when an energy auditor shows up, one of the very first things they look at is something called the thermal envelope. It's just a technical term for a really simple idea. It's everything that separates the warm, cozy inside of your building from the cold, windy outside. The easiest way to picture it, it's your building's winter coat. And, you know, just like with our own coats, they are not all created equal. A good thermal envelope is like one of those fancy, high-tech puffy jackets. It's thick, it's sealed up tight, it keeps all your body heat right where you want it. A bad one? Well, that's like trying to survive a blizzard wearing a thin, ripped-up windbreaker. It's just not going to work. You're going to be leaking heat everywhere. But even the best coat is useless if the zipper is broken, right? And that brings us to the next term, thermal bridges. If the thermal envelope is the coat itself, the thermal bridges are all the weak spots, the broken zipper, the unstitched seams, the holes. These are the specific places where heat finds a super easy escape route, making your furnace work way, way harder than it should. And this is precisely what the auditors discovered when they looked at our 1978 school. It's pretty telling. They found that the old, single-pane wooden windows, the completely uninsulated walls, and even the roof, they weren't just a little leaky. They were acting like massive thermal bridges, basically giant open highways for heat to just pour out of the building 24/7. Okay, so the auditors have found all the problems, they've done all their measurements. Now what? Well, they take all of that complicated data, all those numbers, and they boil it down into something incredibly simple. something anyone can understand. They give the building its official report card. And this is what it looks like. This is the Energy Performance Certificate. This is the whole point. It takes all that science and just distills it down to a single letter grade. Just like in school, A is excellent, and G, well, G is not so good. This is that nutrition label we were talking about, finally making a building's energy health totally clear. So what's behind these letters? What does an A or a G actually mean? Well, it all boils down to a single number. How many kilowatt hours of energy the building uses per square meter over a whole year. Look at the chart. An A building is a real champ, super efficient. But as you go down the scale, the energy use doesn't just creep up, it explodes. A G building can be guzzling almost 6 times more energy than an A building. That's just a staggering difference. So what about our school? Where did it land? Well, its initial number came in at 328.4. And if you look back at that chart, that puts it firmly in the D range. Not failing, but definitely not good. A clear, undeniable sign that this building was hemorrhaging energy and money. But the audit didn't just give a grade. It also showed why. And this is the smoking gun right here. A whopping 73% of all the energy that school was using was just for heating. That is a massive number, and it points directly back to what we were talking about, that leaky winter coat and all those thermal bridges. Okay, so finding the problem is one thing. That's half the job. But now for the fun part, the plan to actually fix it. This is where the audit stops being a report card and starts being a blueprint for a total transformation, and they didn't mess around. The renovation plan was a full-on overhaul. Step 1, fix that coat. They wrapped the walls, the roof, even the foundation in thick new insulation. Step 2, seal the leaks. Those old drafty windows were tossed out and replaced with modern triple glazed units. Step 3, upgrade the engine. They put in a brand new efficient heating system, plus this really clever ventilation that actually reclaims heat from the air it's pushing out. And for the final touch, step 4, they gave the building its own power plants with solar panels for both hot water and electricity. So, did it work? Oh, yeah. The results are, well, you can see for yourself on the chart. This wasn't just a small improvement. This was a night and day transformation. The building's energy use just plummeted. It went from that 328.4 all the way down to just 67.8. I mean, look at that drop. It's incredible. Let's put that in terms of grades. The school literally jumped from a D all the way to an A. That's a 79% reduction in the energy it consumes. That is insane. They didn't just patch up the building, they completely changed its energy DNA. So what this whole story proves is that a building's fate isn't sealed on the day it's built. You can change it. And that, of course, brings the question right back to us, to our homes, to our workplaces. Because here's the real takeaway from all of this. A building's energy performance, it's not a mystery. It's not some magic force we can't control. It is a number that we can measure, that we can understand, and, as we just saw, a number that we can dramatically improve. So, every building out there, the office you work in, the apartment you live in, the house you own, every single one has an energy grade, whether it's written on a piece of paper or not. It has a score. So the final question is pretty simple. Do you know what yours